Hi guys, Mr. P here, and this is the first in a series of videos that I'm going to be doing all about taking teaching back in 2018. Now, there is still massive issues in our country as far as recruitment and retention in education, mainly down to issues like workload, and despite the past couple of years having Ofsted and the DfE talk about reducing workload within teaching, there are still some massive issues in lots and lots of schools. Now, Ofsted have said if they do come into your school now, they'll be asking questions about how you've improved wellbeing and workload, and it's not about putting on a yoga day, it's about addressing issues where you're adding excessive time and pressure onto teachers, and that doesn't necessarily have a direct impact on pupil outcomes. So I want to identify certain things in these videos, talk them through with you, talk about some ideas for how to move it forward, and just get a discussion going. So what I need from you to help us with this journey is to like, share and comment on these videos. Tag as many of your teacher friends in. If we really want to move education forward and take teaching back, we've all got to get involved. So I'm hoping that this message gets spread, discussions are happening then in schools, and hopefully we do move forward to get working smarter, not harder. So this first video is going to be talking about book scrutinies. Now, what I'm not saying is we don't do any physical looking at books and what's going on in books. Of course we do. What I'm talking about here is that phrase, book scrutinies. Now, I did a course a few weeks ago and I said this, I said it's something we need to get away, we need to move away from, this idea of book scrutiny. And a teacher put their hands up and said, well, we don't call them book scrutinies anymore. I said, all right, what do you call them? Or we call them book looks. And as she said that, everyone else in the room, eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning, because they were like, that rhymes, that rhymes. And we're a bit weird teachers, aren't we, in that if it rhymes, if there's some alliteration, we're like, we're doing it. No pedagogical value in it, but it rhymes. So this isn't, yeah, it's not about not doing book scrutinies, it's about that word book, right? So if you, whatever you call it, book looks, book scrutinies, the message you're sending to teachers is that we are judging you by what you put in a book, right? And we can have a look at the curriculum. So just take this quick look at the curriculum to see how we can't actually evidence a lot in books. So here we are, if we just jump into one of the year groups, year 3, and we'll go for English there. Now look, the first part of every year group's curriculum are those spoken language objectives, and not a single one of them can you evidence by what goes into a book. Into comprehension, we've got this one, preparing poems and play scripts to read aloud and to perform, showing understanding through intonation, tone, volume and action. Again, you cannot evidence that in a book. Composing and rehearsing sentences orally, progressively building a varied and rich vocabulary. And the one at the bottom there, read their own writing aloud to a group or the whole class. And some of us actually think that spoken language, oral speaking and listening is sort of some sort of poor cousin to reading and writing, but you couldn't be more wrong. It is so important to be developing these skills, but so many teachers thinking, well, we can't evidence it in a book, and they're not sitting a SATs test on it. So first of all, if books are the only way in which you're evidencing learning, you're teaching a very narrowed curriculum. Plus it's the time it takes. How much time? I've worked with teachers, I'll give you an example. I was with a year 1 teacher once who did a math lesson. It was a great math lesson all about number bonds to 10. The children were physically making number sentences with Numicon, but the teacher spent the whole lesson taking pictures of the children doing that activity, spent a whole break time sending those pictures from her iPad to a computer, straight into a phonics activity, straight into her English lesson. At lunchtime she spent 3/4 of an hour sending those pictures from a computer to the printer, getting them all trimmed down, and the TA spent all afternoon doing what? Yes, you guessed it, sticking it in books. Now that for me is detrimental to children's learning, because if you add up that time a teacher takes doing that over a week, a half term, a term, a year, and think what we could be doing with that time, but also the TA then is not working with the children, then this is where it's got to change. And who is that for? Who is that for? If you're spending all this time just proving the activities you've done in class, it's not for the children. So we've got to be looking at other ways in which we can evidence learning. Now for me, this is where technology can really help. In our school, we're utilising technology with tools like Seesaw. That's the one that we're using. But I'm not saying Seesaw is the only tool out there. Google Classroom, Shobi, down in the UIFS you've got Too Simple and so on. So it's about utilising these tools to evidence learning alongside books. And where this is even more powerful is actually when you let the children do it as well. Far too often when it comes to evidence in an assessment, it's the teacher doing it all. For example, I saw this picture doing the rounds on social media the other day. Now, don't get me wrong, lovely, lovely idea, but that's adding more time to the teacher. Now, why are we not letting the children do that? Why are we not utilising technology and saying, if you've done a brilliant piece of work, Jamie, go and take a picture of it and put it on Seesaw, Google Classroom, whatever it might be. In that process, you're getting the children to understand how the internet works, embedding sort of simple digital literacy skills. So there's a whole range of different things coming in there as well. So what am I saying? Well, I'm saying, look, book scrutinies, I'm not going to get into the frequency of how often they should happen. I'm not going to talk about, you know, schools who say we need to see a certain amount of work in books each week, even though I don't think that actually equates to quality. What I'm saying is, no one is going to come into your school and specifically ask for books. They're going to ask for what you're choosing to use to evidence learning. And if you think I'm joking, here's what Ofsted say about it. So here is the school inspection handbook from Ofsted. I'm just going to whiz through, find the page, where are we? Here we go. The clarification for schools. I mean, this is a whole different video in itself. You're more than welcome to have a look through. It does talk about pupils' work. But it's down here where it talks about evidence for inspection, and this particular point where it talks about taking a range of evidence into account, so on and so on, including that held in electronic form, including these tools I've mentioned if you choose to use them. Also worth mentioning this point a little bit further on about seeing photographic evidence of pupils' work. So it's down to you. It's down to you and your school choosing what's going to work best for you. Now, you might have a system where you're using books but you're not spending as much time, that's absolutely fine. But if, like a lot of teachers I come across, you are wasting time accounting things in books just to prove that you've done it, how can things like technology, how can other tools be used to actually, even if it's just not calling it a book scrutiny and calling it a learning review and just getting some children to talk to the SLT. What I find as well is if SLT are having to think, well, I'm going to have to look in books, I'm going to have to look on Seesaw, I'm going to have to look at this and that, that's going to add time. Well, it will to them, but I'm not being funny. I think you've got to see the bigger picture there. If it's adding a couple of extra minutes for the SLT when they're doing the learning review, compare that to the hours it's going to save every class, learning time for the children and for the teacher. You know, if teachers got that time to find better resources to make and create better lessons to inspire the learning in the class, surely that's better. So, love to hear from you, love to hear your thoughts. By all means comment, let me know what you think, and yeah, stay tuned for the next time that I talk about how to take teaching back. Thanks for watching.